But moving on to AppDate. AppDate is our new regular feature about the NHS app and everything else that is app related. So we will be continuing this feature on a Monday, even after the app has been rolled out nationwide. In the meantime, it is still being tested. We have direct contact with the NHS executive team who are leading the pilot and doing the app. So your feedback really, really matters to us. You don't have to be in Newham, but if you are in Newham, please download the app and tell us, what did you find easy? What did you find difficult? What did you find confusing? Were there some things that didn't make sense to you at all? Are there things you would also like to see the app do before it's rolled out nationally, and so on and so forth? But if you're not in Newham, just tell us generally what makes an app accessible to you, what makes it fun, what makes you kind of continue to use it after a certain point of time. And more broadly, in this, our digital year as an organisation, what are your favourite apps relating to the arts? We've been discussing quite a number, and I'm sure we will continue to do so. But first, the government announced just over 2 hours ago that the app is going to be rolled out in England and Wales from the 24th of September. And I'm going to have to double check in a minute exactly which day of the week that is. Well, I won't assume anything. Otherwise, I would have assumed it would have been a Monday. Exactly. So, anyway, that I think is really exciting news because it also shows how well the trial is going. And I think that's a really important thing for anybody out there who's been supporting the NHS pilot to remember this is really good news and this is thanks to all of you. But we need far more people to get involved. I know the other news that's been announced is additional lockdown restrictions in your area. It won't reach as far as you, or will it?
Well, I guess let's make sense of this. Sorry, that was a very bad beginning of a sentence. Firstly, I think round of applause to everyone in Newham and those helping the testing of the app. In fact, I had a software update on my phone which specifically told me that it now includes the capacity to work with the app, which is really good. Um, yeah, we kind of there was a news buzz that came around Birmingham only about 45 minutes ago, maybe an hour, to say that there'd been a meeting of local council leaders, so like the different boroughs, which is so Birmingham it counts as one as far as this is concerned. So Birmingham and Sandwell and Solihull have been told that as of Tuesday, then there will be additional lockdown restrictions, but as yet, nothing actually said what that is, other than households won't be able to mix together, but nothing about pubs or sports clubs or controlled activities or any yet. I mean, so it's kind of watch this space. I mean, we know that like the figure for Birmingham is up to 85.4 per 100,000 people.
Yes, 32 last week.
Yeah, which is almost a threefold rise in a week. Um, so it's pretty scary, really. I mean, and it's weird, and I think that what's so confusing is that you can look at a localized map of Birmingham, which then does break the area into council wards, and you can see that there are areas that still have absolutely no cases, and other areas that take up the majority of it. But I guess that in somewhere like a mix of Sandwell, Birmingham, and Solihull, there is so much cross town traffic. Um, if anybody needs to listen to a Jimi Hendrix song, that's a good one. Um, yeah, but I think that may well be that the lockdown may spread across the entirety of the kind of what they'll call the conurbation. Um,
And this is where I get really, I expose my London centricity. But where is Sutton Coalfield within these boroughs?
okay, so Sutton Coalfield is actually on the northeast tip of Birmingham. So if you look at a map of Birmingham, the top right hand corner that kind of squidgy blob in the middle is where Sutton Coalfield is. Just outside us, I mean, probably less than a mile, is Staffordshire and North Warwickshire, which probably aren't going to be in lockdown, but that's where it goes. But so we are really on that edge of where we are, and but you've only sort of, it's not that far across town. Birmingham is probably only 20 miles wide, from corner to corner. But there are so many small little towns, and I guess just like London, Birmingham, and then add in Solihull and Sandwell, are loads and loads of what were little towns or villages that got bigger and bigger until they all blobbed into one,
mushed together.
Yeah, they one big area that is almost, I think it's almost divvied up because it's easy to be able to work out how to fund it and do bin collections and deliver letters.
And of course, that's really important too. I mean, I think all we can do in terms of predictions is look at the enhanced lockdowns they've already got in places like Leicester. And also to see, like you say, whether they will be a little bit smarter about it or whether they'll just go, no, there's too much crossover. I was looking on the Newham Council website and they have now produced, I think they call it, I forget exactly what they call it, but you can get to it from the front page. And it's basically a series of updates with a comment from Jason, who's the Director of Public Health. And unfortunately, what it shows today is that the number of cases testing positive in Newham has doubled in a week. So over 100 people tested positive in the borough last week, around 50 the week before. And if you look at the percentage of people testing positive, so it isn't just about, oh, the app's working really well, people are going for tests, because the percentage of people testing positive has doubled as well. And that's how we know that it really has doubled. And there was some more research that came out at lunchtime that said at the moment, the number of cases are doubling every 8 days. So we're kind of back potentially where we would have been in February, except that we have social distancing and things like the app to save our lives and to save everybody else's lives. So it's not the best way to be starting the autumn, or indeed with the heatwave coming on, to be ending the summer. But at least now, unlike February, we know what we have to do. And in our case, we would say that's stay home, stay creative, and that's the best way to stay well. Do we have other apps that we would like to discuss? This is where you all look alarmed, isn't it? No,
I
no.
look to Josh at this point.
I prepared that piece for Wednesday.
No,
it kind of links back to what I was going to talk for the weekend. But kind of apps like Audible and Kindle and things like that. And certainly with lockdowns increasing in places and restrictions increasing, and the potential of kind of wider restrictions kind of nationally coming back in as the R value kind of shoots up. Things like that where I don't like watching the news at the moment, or even kind of reading it or talking about it, because it just stresses me out. So having something like that where if you want to read it, that's fine, but if you can find a book that you like and a good novel that's 15-20 hours long, you can just pop some headphones in and just ignore the world for a little bit and kind of lose yourself in a story or a biography or whatever it is, but just something to kind of distract your brain that isn't kind of just sitting in front of watching the TV, which can kind of make you feel a little bit kind of almost lethargic. Almost you feel like you haven't accomplished anything because you just sat on the TV for 6 hours. Whereas if you're like, oh, I've read for 6 hours, you kind of, it's a weird kind of psychological thing that you feel that that's a better spent time almost.
Yes, and I think the other trouble with TV at the moment is we have this conversation that goes, have we seen this 3 times already? Well, let me watch it again then, and you think, well, it's good to see a good film and to remind yourself, because one of the clubs we run is a photographers and filmmakers club, and it's always good to teach off popular film, but it is a little bit desperate. And in fact, yesterday was the day when more books were published than any other day of the year. There's another, what they call Super Thursday, coming up at the beginning of October, and apparently it was like, as they say, more like Harry Potter than the last few months. Although book sales in general have been up, and since bookshops have been able to reopen, they've been doing very well indeed compared to last year. So I think you're absolutely right. I read a lot about COVID because that's part of my job in terms of information and risk assessment, but I don't watch films or TV shows. I actually find that is my kind of mental health thing. But generally speaking, unless you've got to keep up to date for work, people do say, for the sake of your mental health, once a day. Limit it to once a day, look at other things. There's so little else being reported, and it's not that other things aren't happening, but I think if it's not being reported, then a good book, whether that's fiction or non-fiction. I have in another life a small press publishing company, and I've had that for goodness, I think 25 years. Isn't that a long time? But one of the things that I find is that most of my sales now are for the Kindle app rather than print books. And the Kindle app is a wonderful app because you can put it on anything. So people think you need a Kindle to run a Kindle app. You don't. Any phone, any tablet, however cheap, any computer. I tend to do most of my reading on the iPad, but yes, I'm intending to kind of get my Kindle app out and go through this list of books that was published yesterday and see what I really fancy reading.
I've already read 2.
Well, since yesterday.
Yeah,
I thought you were ill in bed, Julie.
yeah, I had a little bit of off time, so I took the opportunity. There were 2 authors that I really like, Joy Ellis and Judith Cutler, who write about detective stories. So I took the opportunity to catch up on their 2 latest releases.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, and I've just started listening. I have to say, we do read due to for access reasons. When we go to bed, it's okay. Don't worry. I hold the book up because Tracy's not able to hold a book without fear of a broken nose. So actually, we read a book, but unfortunately, usually what happens when I pick a book up is that I end up with the one with the broken nose after about 3 pages. So we are very slowly reading through a book about witches. And I can't. What's it called?
The
Deborah Harkness.
Yeah, so it's a trilogy of books. They're on the last one, but the first one is called A Discovery of Witches, and then there's the second book called Something, and then the third one I think is called The Book of Life, and I think that's the trilogy.
Yeah, that's it. So we're on that one, which
I'd read. I actually had I listened to the audiobooks of them on a recommendations from a friend, but Mum likes reading or getting Dad to read to us. So for Christmas, I brought them the whole trilogy of books for Christmas. I think about 3 years ago, and at the rate of a page and a half a night, it's taken them a while.
What they say, a good gift.
Lots of people have picked up loads of books they've been meaning to read. Before this gets completely off the topic of AppDate, and there are other reading apps, but actually what I find as a publisher is Kindle gives more money to the authors than any other reading app. So
Okay.
I think is always important to bear in mind. So finally, there's a comment here on the live chat from Renee Wallen. I printed off the Sunday Times top 10 fiction list a couple of weeks ago and made a commitment to read all 10 books. Just started the third.
Wow.
My guess is they're slightly longer books than Joy Ellis's and the other one that Julie was reading on the Kindle app yesterday.
I bet they're grown-up books, aren't they, Renee?
Yes, well, moving swiftly on. So that
I didn't mean rude books.
No, I didn't think you did.
I did.
Well, I'll leave it to you, readers, to make up your own mind. And in the meantime, I'm going to put a short film on that's going to tell you more about how you can join in from home on a Friday. After that, we'll be looking at something for the weekend and coming back to some of the things we've just flagged up earlier, as well as looking at lots of other opportunities for you to be creative and entertained from home.